In the new Discovery Plus original true crime series Relentless, documentary filmmaker Christina Fontana tries to help a Missouri family desperately searching for their missing daughter. Christina quickly goes down a rabbit hole of drugs, corruption, organized crime, and possibly murder, realizing she can't trust anyone, including the missing girl's own family. Start your free trial to follow Christina as she spends over a decade of her life searching for the truth. Relentless, now streaming on Discovery Plus, the streaming home of true crime and so much more for just $4.99.
Ever wanted to break out of your cubicle and into a business where you can call the shots? iFix is looking for passionate self-starters interested in a franchise opportunity in the booming electronics repair industry. At iFix, we help reconnect people to the devices that they rely on so that they can get back to what matters most. This is a big responsibility, and from the moment you join our family, our franchisees are provided with the resources and support to bring affordable and convenient electronics repair to your community. Did we mention that with amazing partners like Samsung and Google, iFix franchisees also have access to the highest quality parts and personalized training out there, as well as specialized tools? It's true. And it's also easy to visit ubreakifix.com/franchising and learn more about your big break at your very own iFix.
So did you miss me? I know you did. It's hard to not to have our daily soiree Monday through Friday, but that's what the podcasts are about. You get to listen to them even when we're not, I was going to say in session like we record, but you get my drift. And I did put in some serious work to some of the podcasts in the last couple of days, so I'm hoping that people are listening to them. You should just download our app. 850wftl.com is the website. You can download the app there. You can go to your app store. You can go to your Apple App Store, your Google App Store, whatever you got, and you will find it there. What is the Google Store? I think it's called like the Play Store or something. Anyway. So the more that states and counties are investigating their own elections the way they're supposed to, the more they're finding out that it's all been a sham and that people have been stealing elections right from under the people. In Mississippi, they just found that in one city, the results were proven to be a lie because 78% of the mail-in votes were determined to be fraudulent. Not 50%, not 60%, not even 70%, not even 75%, 78%. 8 in 10 mail-in votes were determined to be fake. In a 64-page order, Judge Jeff Wheel not only calls for a new election, but also finds evidence of fraud and criminal activity in how absentee ballots were handled, how the votes were counted, and the actions by some at the polling place. In his ruling, the judge said that 66 of 84 absentee ballots cast in the June runoff were not valid and should have never been counted. Nicholas Holliday was declared the winner by a 37-vote margin. Robert DeVowel challenged the results in court, and Judge Wheel found many irregularities with absentee ballots. He issued a bench warrant for notary Dallas Jones, who notarized absentee ballots. And during a hearing, Jones admitted violating notary duties. When you have an absentee ballot, there's an envelope. You vote, fold the ballot, put it in the envelope, lick the flap, sign across the flap. Then a notary signs your election certificate. She testified that she didn't sign in front of anybody, didn't see anybody sign it. She just notarized it, just stamped them. God. Now, if other cities would continue this due diligence and investigate the elections and the ballots in their own cities, I'm sure the people would learn that they too have been hoodwinked. So much going on this weekend. So many disgusting displays of anti-Americanism. Sorry, but I just got to call it what it is. The Hate America crowd was really just on blast, had us on blast this weekend, from Maxine Waters, right, who told us that the Declaration of Independence is a terrible document and equal to who and all this nonsense. Really just amazing. This is a woman who's been sitting in the United States Congress for decades, a woman who's a multimillionaire, and America stinks as far as she's concerned. I can't imagine how she'd feel if she were impoverished and working at some, nickel and dime job somewhere, which is probably the extent of her skill set, but that's a whole nother show. Don't dismiss it because you know it's true. Once again, the President of the United States, Joe Biden, apparently got some really bad information from the people who are advising him. His advisors apparently had no idea about contract law and the costs of terminating a government contract at the convenience of the government. He has no idea what the duties are, and $15 billion will probably end up settling a $12 billion claim, the money that could have paid for the completion of the wall. Oh, yeah. And don't forget those wall contractors will have claims, too. What a nightmare. And taxpayers are going to be stuck with these decisions. The Keystone XL pipeline developer seeks $15 billion in damages. Energy company TC Energy has said it's seeking $15 billion in damages from the United States government over President Biden's decision to cancel the Keystone XL pipeline project. In a statement on July 2nd, the Canada-based company said it had filed a notice of intent with the State Department to begin a legacy NAFTA claim under the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. That's curious, right? More than $15 billion they lost as a result of the U.S. government's breach of its NAFTA. Oh, man, you just can't make this stuff up. Even if you tried, you couldn't. The State Department didn't respond to a request for comment by anybody in the press yet. President Biden signed an executive order on his very first day in office that halted the Keystone Pipeline project, saying the move was part of his administration's larger agenda to tackle, you know what, a climate crisis. And subsequently, TC Energy on June 9th officially pulled out of the project, which was first proposed in 2008 and would carry hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil per day from Canada into the United States. And while, of course, the squad and all the supporters on the left and all the environmentalist wackos are all cheerful about his decision, most industry groups were upset. And certainly conservatives and Republicans were upset. Tens of thousands of jobs were lost essentially overnight when they canceled the pipeline. And after we revoked the permit, the energy company said it would directly lead to the layoff of thousands of union workers. So, his contention, the president's contention, was it would not serve the U.S. national interest, and that his January 20th order is designed to promote and protect our public health and the environment and conserve our national treasures and monuments and places that secure our national memory. Wait a minute, we're tearing down our monuments and treasures. So what is he talking about? This is a pipeline that was supposed to carry, close to 1 million barrels of oil every day from the oil sands in Alberta all the way to Nebraska. It's been delayed for over a decade because of all of the craziness by the environmentalists and some of the landowners and the Native Americans. And it was reported back in February that the decision by the president to ban the pipeline has sparked renewed interest in transporting Canada's oil sands crude to U.S. refineries by more carbon-intensive rail. Oh, my God. So it's going to be a bigger carbon footprint now, as supplies from Mexico and Venezuela are on the decline. Data show that Canada has been exporting an average of 129,727 barrels of oil per day by rail for the month of April, as the industry continues to look for ways to address the end of the Keystone Pipeline project. Alberta Premier Jason Kennedy said in a statement on June 9th that he remains disappointed and frustrated with the circumstances surrounding the Keystone XL project, including the cancellation of the permit by the president for the pipeline's border crossing. Reports say the province had invested over $1 billion in the pipeline, which means it'll now have to take a total loss on the project. Guess what? Not so fast. Looks like a lawsuit. Looks like a good lawsuit. Looks like an idiot, advised the president on this one. And there's just so much more. These incredibly disgusting anti-American displays over the weekend. And let me tell you something. I've always been a big fan of Vanessa Williams. I thought she had a lovely voice. I thought she got a raw deal a couple of times in her career, and I always spoke out for her. But the idea that we're now going to close the 4th of July festivities on the mall with the new national anthem, or let me reframe that, the black national anthem. This is like, what are we, multiple nations now? What are we going to have, a black national? Who's going to be singing the Puerto Rican national anthem next year, or maybe the Asian American national anthem, or maybe I don't know, we can think of another group of people, right? Maybe the Portuguese American national anthem, right? Every group has to have their own. We're going to have an LGBTQ LMNOP national anthem as well. Who's going to sing that? I think, Boy George. We'll find someone. Don't worry. If we can't find someone, we'll just have their gender switched. That's it. Just saying. This is crazy. It's absolutely crazy what's going on here. First of all, we have one national anthem. And if you don't like it, don't sing it. If you want to sit quietly and not put your hand over your heart, knock yourself out. But we're not replacing it. We're not adding to it. We're not going to tear apart the Declaration of Independence while we're sitting in the halls of Congress and get away with it. It's about time that they got rid of Maxine Waters in California, considering her district still remains a total disaster. Just like if the late Alcee Hastings had not passed, he should have been gotten rid of because his district is in complete disarray as usual. And this is just, the story goes on and on and on. I got to sit here and listen to this Cori Bush creature talking about how, this means nothing to us. We don't feel equal, and we don't have, and we not this. Man, you're sitting in Congress. How many people get to sit in Congress? Not many. We only get 435 per Congress, per legislative session. You only get 100 sitting in the Senate, and I still have to be lectured by these people that America's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. I'm here, but it's not fair. Fair for me, but not fair for you. Goodness gracious. I got I don't even know how to describe my vice president, but I would assume that we could say she is a member of a people of color group, right? I don't know which one, Indian or, Caribbean, but let's just say she's a POC, even though my inclination is to say another set of initials, but we'll go with POC. I was looking at her on TV the other day, and there's something going on with her face. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the reason she hasn't been seen much or didn't go down to the border is because she needed a little downtime, because she don't look the same as she did during the election at all. Not that I object to anybody making themselves look better or having, getting Botox or having even surgery done. I don't object to that at all. But don't pretend that you didn't, because it looks ridiculous. It's so different. But anyway, I digress. You'll see for yourself. I'm not sure what the look she was going for, though. It might be the laughing mask that's half of the comedy and tragedy masks. I'm not sure. Either that, or it might actually be more like the Joker. But whatever it is, I think she made a terrible choice. Anyway, let me take a quick break. I want to remind you that we have an app that you can download, and it's really a good way to listen to this program no matter where you are, no matter what time of day it is. Gosh, I'm speaking awfully quickly today. Let me see if I can slow down my speech a little bit. It's just that I have so much to say and so little time in which to say it. Stay right where you are. So one of my friends is having a really tough day. He says, it used to annoy me to press 1 for English. Now no one speaks English well, no matter what button you press. All the calls are overseas or people who haven't mastered the language yet. Can we start lobbying for press 1 for an American, 2 for everything else? He's having a tough day, but I can relate. I truly can. So I don't know about the rest of you, but, for a long period of time, we use the term, I Googled it, to show how we did some research. Even though I don't believe that Googling something or just checking on Google for what you're looking for is an adequate way of doing any research. And in particular, since the first place, the Google search engine always sends people, when they're asking a question about an individual or an event, is to Wikipedia. I do not use Wikipedia. I do not like Wikipedia. I don't like what Wikipedia has on anyone, to be perfectly frank. And I have always suspected that Wikipedia has just such a liberal bias that it's useless to me. Totally useless, right? Well, now the former or the actual co-founder of Wikipedia is warning that Wikipedia, his name is Larry Sanger, he's warning that the online encyclopedia is more one-sided than ever in light of the website's entries for Black Lives Matter, the 2020 election, former President Donald Trump's 2 impeachments, and other contentious topics. He particularly took issue with how some Wikipedia entries are sourced. In short, and with very few exceptions, only globalist, progressive, mainstream sources and sources friendly to progressivism are permitted, he wrote in an article on his website. Several centrist news outlets like the Daily Telegraph, the Wall Street Journal, and the Weekly Standard are sometimes allowed to be sourced, he said, but Wikipedia editors are careful never to leave the current Overton window of progressive thought. And unlike Facebook and Twitter, which take more top-down approaches to content moderation, Wikipedia, which turned 20 years old this year, I can barely believe that, largely relies on unpaid volunteers to handle issues around users' behavior, editing entries, and other aspects of the site's management. Wikipedia has 230,000, that's 250,000 volunteer editors who work on crowdsourced articles, and more than 3,500 administrators who can take actions like blocking accounts or restricting edits on certain pages. And that's according to Reuters, all right? Wikipedia's editors have systematically purged conservative mainstream media sources because its editors, quote, do not want what they dismiss as misinformation, conspiracy theories, etc., to get any hearing. In saying so, they similarly are plainly claiming exclusive control over what you're allowed to think. They set the boundaries of the debate, and they want to tell you how to think about it. Wikipedia has banned Fox News political reporting, the New York Post, the Daily Mail. You cannot use Breitbart, the Blaze, the Daily Wire, the Gateway Pundit, and Newsmax. They're all banned, okay? You can't make this stuff up. They're conservative sites. The Federalist, the Daily Caller, also banned. So how on earth can you ever get your viewpoint aired on Wikipedia? You can't. Not even if there are no reliable sources available to report about them. So Wikipedia, like some of these other deeply biased institutions of this brave new digital world, has turned itself into thought police. They have shackled conservative viewpoints with which they disagree. And Sanger concludes on his website, democracy cannot thrive under such conditions. I maintain that Wikipedia has become an opponent of vigorous democracy. But democracy, he argued, requires that voters be given the full range of views on controversial issues so that they can make up their minds for themselves. If society's main information sources march in ideological lockstep, they make a mockery of democracy. Then the wealthy and the powerful need only gain control of the few approved organs of acceptable thought, and then they'll be able to manipulate and ultimately control the entire political dialogue in this country. Sanger and another co-founder, Jimmy Wales, created Wikipedia, of which Sanger gave its name, in 2001. He left the project during the next year and has for years criticized the website. Why? Because he was fair-minded and because he thought it should be a better representation of the different schools of thought and the different opinions that are out there. And instead, it became what just about everything else is becoming right now, a tool of the progressive left. It's horrifying. It really is. Censorship, left everywhere I turn, it's censorship. And socialism, but everywhere I turn, it's this promotion of socialism and this degradation of America and all of Western civilization. When you get it coming from your elected representatives, when they hate this country and don't believe in the Constitution and don't believe in the Declaration of Independence, what hope do we have going forward? Basically, you have to have a peaceful, bloodless coup and get rid of all this trash that's sitting in Congress right now. And that's what it is. The squad, all of it, out. They cannot represent people if they will not even listen to people, and they don't let anyone else represent their viewpoint. Believe me, this has come home to me in my personal life, and I'm as fed up as any of you out there, maybe more fed up, and I'm not taking it anymore. That's it. You don't like my opinion? Tough. You want to try and censor me? Go ahead. Give it your best shot. Because if I have to take a megaphone and stand on a soapbox in the middle of a park, that's what I'll do. Anyway, don't forget, coming up right after me is Dan Bongino, followed by Ben Shapiro at 4 o'clock, and then we'll have lots of other exciting programming for you throughout the day. Tomorrow morning, we begin the day again with Bill and Jen. I think Jen's on vacation, but Bill's there, and Stephen and Karen, so you'll still have a great time. Stay right where you are. I'll be right back with Robert Bork Jr., a very interesting interview coming up. And welcome back. I have an opportunity right now to speak with, I guess, the next best thing, since it's been almost 10 years, I believe, since Judge Robert H. Bork passed. And his son, who is also Robert H. Bork, is my guest today because there is certainly a subject that the judge spoke about quite frequently. And how many people, Robert, do you think actually have a verb that their name has become a verb like your father's?
Well, he enjoyed that. In fact, he used to say it was one form of immortality.
That's right.
Dictionary, so.
And if he had lived and seen what they just put through Justice Kavanaugh through, he would have realized that it was just the beginning of this campaign against conservative judges. That
it only got worse after him. It was pretty hard living through it in 1987, but every year, every time we've had a nomination since, even to a certain extent, Amy Coney Barrett, but right. Kavanaugh got the worst of it.
He sure did. Well, it's fascinating. When I got this notification that you were going to be talking about this sort of reintroduction of one of your father's most famous books, The Antitrust Paradox, I had just finished reading for probably the fifth time Slouching Towards Gomorrah, because every time I read that book, I realize how prescient your father really was. And the same thing is, once I got this notice that you were doing this, I pulled out The Antitrust Paradox. And again, he sort of anticipated what we're looking at right now when it comes to these tech companies, didn't he?
He really did. Back when he started working on that book in the 60s, of all things, it was a long time ago, he was worried about what's happening now, antitrust then. And so he was very concerned that antitrust law would be used as a weapon against business and capitalism by the left then. And, of course, they were trying to. He wrote up a new approach to looking at the antitrust, which was the consumer welfare standard, which made sense out of the antitrust laws and made it easier for judges and enforcement agencies to look at the law and see how they should apply it. Fast forward now almost 50 years since the book came out in 1978, and we're back in the same place, and perhaps even worse, because all those kids from the 60s and 70s are all in power now, and they have some pretty wild ideas about how they should weaponize antitrust and use it to control our economy. That's really what this is all about. It has little to do with competition. It has everything to do with control, government control.
Yeah, well, we see plenty of that. My son went to Yale Law School, and his area of expertise is antitrust and bankruptcy. And when he told me that was what he was going to be, studying, actually at the recommendation of one of his advisors, I gave him the antitrust paradox. I gave him the book, and I said, they're not going to give you this at Yale, but you need to read this. And so he had, that in his tool belt,
It's true. I hope he had Professor George Priest there, who took over my father's course.
That was his advisor. George Priest was his advisor.
He's a very good man, very good Chicago School of Classical, law and economics guy. And that's really the approach that my father brought to antitrust when he taught it at Yale. He just, in fact, when he was working on this book, he taught himself calculus. So he could figure out, do all the calculations, do all the economics and the math to put forward his notion of the consumer welfare standard, which was adopted by the Supreme Court the year after the book came out.
That's right.
Somebody cited the book in a case, and the Supreme Court adopted. It's been basically the law of the land, the rule of antitrust enforcement for 43 years. And now they want to tear that all down because they want to introduce all their sort of subjective, woke ideology into the law so they can, gain control over, many corporations. And, it's not just big tech, which is in the crosshairs. It's an easy target because they managed to upset so many people on both sides. But they're going to go after agriculture. They're going to go after retail. They're going to go after pharmaceuticals. They're going to go after healthcare in general. They have a long list of companies and industries that they want to go after and use antitrust as a weapon.
Yeah, and I try to point out to people when I get into these debates that this is not just people on the right who feel that there have been violations of goodwill when it comes to capitalism and a free market, but people on the left are speaking up, and I think that this may be one of the few areas where the left and the right will come together. They certainly seem to be coming together to weaponize antitrust, so maybe they will, the remaining sane people will come together to refuse to do that.
One can only hope. My goal in reissuing the book, it had gone out of print.
Right.
But I saw this coming a few years ago, and I got control of the copyright and actually started my own publishing company to make sure that it would get done right and get out quickly. My goal in doing it was to protect this notion, this consumer welfare standard that puts the consumer at the center of everything in antitrust. It doesn't protect inefficient competitors. It's not about competitors having fights with each other. It's about what's best for the consumer.
Right.
And that was my father's idea. And so that's why I brought the book back to life. And I had, Mike Lee, senator from Utah, write the new introduction, and I wrote the foreword.
And you really, this is an area of expertise for you because as a journalist, you covered international economics and you understand the subject matter. So
I do. I don't claim to be a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on the radio.
Right.
But I did, as I like to joke, get a legal degree at the dinner table. So I have a participation certificate, if nothing else.
Hey, listen. You claim to be the son of a lawyer. I'm the mother of a lawyer, and once you've been that close to a lawyer, you start thinking like a lawyer in many instances.
Well, I married a lawyer too, so I'm surrounded.
Yeah, I'll say. I am so grateful, first and foremost, that these brilliant books are being kept alive. I mean, I hope that you reissue all of them. I still, as I told you, I have to read Slouching Towards Gomorrah like every couple of years because, I'll be having a thought or I'll hear an argument and I'll say, well, wait a minute, that was in that book. People are acting shocked, but this was all anticipated by Judge Bork, decades ago. And the same with the antitrust paradox. I had forgotten about that book since my son graduated law school some 15 years ago. It was the last time I thought about it. But I broke it out. I still got my first edition there, my original copy. But the reissue will be is out already?
It's been out since April. It's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. I don't think you can find it in too many bookstores, physical bookstores, but those two places, and I think Apple Books also, you can order it from there.
Are there still
bookstores? It's in hardback, paperback, and ebook.
Yeah, are there still bookstores? I mean, I think I see one Barnes and Noble in the whole South Florida area. But hey, listen, I'm grateful that I have services that I can go and order it online. Robert, thank you so much for coming on today. And as I said to you before, I handed that book to my son when he was studying antitrust, and thank God he didn't come out of Yale completely distorted. He actually has a good brain.
Yes. Well, congratulations to him, and thank you so very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
A pleasure. Thank you. All right, and if you want the book, go get the book. This is not. I love when people say, "Well, that's a little too deep or a little too hard for me to read." First and foremost, Judge Bork wrote very understandable books because first he went out and did all the research for you. He taught himself calculus. He just told me so that he could write this antitrust paradox. If you're sitting around and you're thinking that we're going to use antitrust laws to challenge big tech or any other corporations, you need to read this book. That's all I'm going to say. All right, let me take a break and we'll come back and wrap this up. I now have really resisted watching any of the cable news, including I know a lot of people still watch Fox, and I do like Tucker Carlson, but I have found that Tucker Carlson has an alternative on the Fox Nation, whatever it is. So I actually did subscribe, I admit it, and I've been very pleased. And there has a person who's appeared with Tucker Carlson a few times by the name of J.D. Vance. And the first time I heard about J.D. Vance was I was advised by a really good friend of mine to read his book, Hillbilly Elegy. And I thought, well, I don't know if I'm really interested in that. And then I got a copy of it anyway. Somebody actually handed me a copy of the book when I was at a public appearance, actually. I can't remember which one it was. But I read the book, and I was fascinated by this man who really explained better than anyone I'd ever heard before what it's like for just a normal person to go to an Ivy League school who maybe didn't come out of some elitist background, because he, much like my son, got to go to Yale. And he really, it's an amazing look at how it did not change him. In 2021, he is going to run for a Senate seat in Ohio. And I'm just excited about it, because here's somebody who is in touch with people, and he is unlike, some of the fake fraud phonies. Like he sounds a lot like what Al Gore tried to sound like in 2000, telling voters that there are people in power that are trying to screw them over. And J.D. Vance even uses some of those populist phrases that Bob Shrum, who was the strategist for Al Gore, I'm fighting for you and all that stuff against the powerful. But Al Gore wasn't, okay? When he made his convention speech in 2000, he didn't talk about the elites. He talked about powerful forces, which could be just about anything. He said, powerful forces and powerful interests stand in your way. The odds seem stacked against you. Vance is not doing that. He tells you who those forces are. His two biggest issues are my two biggest issues, immigration and trade. Well, and you can add faith for me. Those would be my three big issues. And it is free trade, just like free immigration, is all what the economists and the businessmen who show you all the charts and graphs and tell you that it's going to make us richer if we have more people coming across the border and we have more free trade. What they can't prove is that those things actually benefit people who live in towns where the factories have closed down, or people who are less skilled workers who are suddenly forced to compete with poorer, hungrier, and cheaper foreign labor. There are winners and losers, we're told, and they are the losers. The winners are the businessmen who benefit from the cheaper and more compliant workers, and the stockholders of those businesses and the banks that lend the money. So J.D. Vance has got my support. I will send money to his campaign. He also has Mickey Kaus's support, which is really fascinating, because when Mickey and I agree, we really agree, and when we don't, we really don't. And he wrote a great piece, Populism, Pogoism, and J.D. Vance, Why Some Kinds of Elite Bashing Are Better Than Others. So I thank you for your time this time. Until next time, I will be back tomorrow at noon, if it be his will, and he delays his coming. So remember, what lies behind us and what lies ahead of us are small matters compared to what lies within us. So wherever you are, just be yourself. Everybody else is taken. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. See you all tomorrow.
In the new Discovery Plus original true crime series Relentless, follow filmmaker Christina Fontana as she helps a family searching for their missing daughter, going down a rabbit hole of drugs, corruption, organized crime, and possibly murder. Relentless, now streaming on Discovery Plus. Start your free trial.